Now,
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:06. Thanks for tuning in here to O'Connor and Company. Larry O'Connor here, and we've got plenty to discuss going forward. At 7:35, Susan Crabtree on a recent House report on the assassination attempt of Donald Trump's life. We'll get the details there and what's broken at the Secret Service. Susan Crabtree knows. 8:05, Tim Murtaugh of the Trump campaign in this final stretch. 2 weeks from today is Election Day. And then at 8:35, Tom Bevan, Real Clear Politics, give us the latest look-see at the polls, which, I don't know, they look pretty strong for Donald Trump right now. As I said, I'm Larry O'Connor. Thanks for tuning in here to our little morning program. And there's Julie Gunlock keeping me in check all morning long.
Good morning.
I love that you don't even combat the idea that you're here to keep me in check. You accept it. You recognize it.
I should
that
have a
is
witty
your lot in life.
response.
No, 100%. Joining us right now is, kind of a big shot, actually. A big wig, as it were. He is the director of energy for the Commonwealth of Virginia. That's a big deal. He's Glenn Davis. Mr. Davis, thanks for joining us.
Larry, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, there's a lot to discuss. I want to start, though, with, data centers are a big deal. Prince William County, Loudoun County in particular. It's been a controversial issue for a lot of the people that live near the data centers in terms of traffic expansion, power usage, and all that. And that's where you step in, because obviously these data centers have been a big part of the economy in the Commonwealth of Virginia, but there's definitely a strain on the power grid. And with some of the pressures that are coming from environmental groups and from the Biden administration, there's not a whole lot more you can do with regard to energy expansion and opportunities in the fossil fuel realm. And that's where nuclear energy comes in. And my understanding is that's sort of where we're headed in Virginia. Tell me about what this process is going to look like and whether the federal government is going to allow, because my understanding was for up until very recently, nuclear power, although it's green, as it were, with regard to carbon emissions, is also a problem with these environmentalists.
Well, Larry, I'll tell you, the environmentalists may have a problem with them, but nuclear is very bipartisan. If you look at the Biden administration, the Biden U.S. Department of Energy, they're very clear that nuclear is completely clean, and it's the only way that we'll ever get to a clean economy. Virginia, back in 2020, was expected to have about a 2% year-over-year growth rate in power demand. We're now looking at a 6.5% to 7% year-over-year growth rate. Virginia is the world's leader, and in data centers, the governor's been very clear we're going to stay that way, which is why we're getting proactive now with how we address that power demand. And as you noted, SMR, small modular reactors, are going to be a big part of that solution. As we look about a decade down the road, and you've already seen the announcements, Amazon recently came out in a partnership with X-Energy and Dominion for a reactor. You have Microsoft looking at 3 Mile, or not looking at, they've acquired 3 Mile Island's nuclear facility. You've got Google doing theirs with the reactor technology as well. So you have all these large data center projects, which is tremendous, because it protects the consumer, right? That bringing their own power, BYOP, if you will. They'll be bringing their own power to the table, so it's not put on the backs of the ratepayer in Virginia.
This is actually, frankly, music to my ears. And just so you know, you're talking to a guy whose daughter just went through the Navy nuclear power school, because she's about to find herself on a nuclear-powered submarine for the next 3 years of her life. And I have learned from my daughter how incredibly safe when done properly. And that's why I'm very interested in this announcement that the Department of the Navy is actually working with Virginia, specifically trying to focus on 4 Virginia sites. How does the Department of the Navy interface with the Commonwealth of Virginia's Department of Energy on these things?
Well, so we've had conversations, but honestly, they will be making their own decisions on base. Before I took this job, I spent 10 years in the General Assembly, and then before that, 5 years in Virginia Beach, which obviously we're very much the energy or the Navy area of, I would say, the U.S. And it is a readiness issue. Energy is a readiness issue for the military. We have some amazing bases down there. They've cited Oceana, Naval Station Oceana down there. We have Quantico, obviously, in Virginia. And the military is looking at how do they guarantee that they have reliable power should an incident occur in the Commonwealth or anywhere, and they need to be able to make sure they're up and running still for operations of their mission. And so that's what they're looking at. They've given us a heads up that 4 of the Virginia facilities are 4 of the 7 that had been identified as places for a small modular reactor or some type of nuclear reactor. It could be a micro that they're looking to consider as we look forward.
Glenn, just my own bona fides here. I am the daughter of a nuclear engineer, and he was also a submariner. So we're very excited to talk to you. And look, we know where the activists are on this. They're totally inconsistent. They want clean energy, and then for years have raised alarms about nuclear energy, which is one of the safest forms of energy. But I'm wondering about the public. How has the public reacted to this? Like, this development of small modular reactors and sort of the renewal, because we know that there's been a pause for many, many decades on nuke power in this country, and now it looks like it's booming again. How has the public reacted to this, and how has your office reassured the public in light of the alarmism coming from these activist organizations?
No, that's a great question. And you're right. I mean, there was a pause since the 70s on building new nuclear plants, right?
Yeah, because of that stupid Jane Fonda movie.
Jane Fonda.
Can
we take a moment? Yeah.
Because everyone says, oh, no, it was Chernobyl. No. It started with Jane Fonda and China syndrome.
Yes. All right, go on. Sorry, Glenn.
So when the governor rolled out his all-the-above energy plan, and he said, we're going to have a small modular reactor, and he mentioned Southwest Virginia in that statement. And there was a lot of talk in Southwest Virginia. So what my team did is we went down to Southwest Virginia, and we held 4 town halls. And the first one we said, look, me and my guys are going to stay on the stage till every question's answered. And we were on stage for 3 hours.
Wow.
And when we got off that stage, we had people coming up to us saying, thank you. I was against nuclear in this area. Now I understand. I think it's be a great opportunity for workforce and for economic opportunity. So it's an education piece, right? I mean, it's been forever. And the reactors of the 70s are not what we're talking about now. These are completely different. They're smaller. They're modular. They're safer. They're what they call walk-away safe. So you can't look at a prior, the reactors built in the 60s and 70s and consider that here. It's a completely different technology. And in many cases, with the Gen 4 reactors, a totally different type of fuel.
Yep.
Yeah. And by the way, I hate to break it to everybody, but the very first one that was installed at a military base is in Fort Belvoir, and it's been there since the late 50s. So hate to break it to you all. Glenn Davis is our guest director of Virginia Department of Energy. I got to ask you about the Piedmont Reliability Project. We just had a state senator from Maryland on yesterday, really good guy, talking about the 70-mile power transmission line that appears to be going through this very lovely rural area of Maryland, and its main purpose is to provide energy for Northern Virginia for these data centers. Can you sort of expand on that and sort of talk to the citizens of Maryland and in this region why this is a necessary project that needs to go forward?
Sure. Well, my understanding is it'll also supply power in the Maryland area, but it will also go into the Northern Virginia area. So Maryland, Virginia, we're 2 of 13 states that belong to a regional transmission organization called PJM. And that responsibility is to make sure that across these 13 states, basically all states north of Virginia, that we keep the lights on. And that requires enough power generation to come online, to power our homes and our businesses, but also to have the transmission infrastructure to get the power from where it's generated to where it needs to be, i.e. our home. And that's why these projects are so important. I can't speak to which path is most efficient and effective and would be the best path for that line. We deal with the same thing in Virginia, as you can imagine. We've had a couple of very similar projects. But I will tell you that we have to have projects like this. Maryland recently has come out and they're closing down, their final coal plants. PJM has come out and said, don't do this. You're going to have blackouts. They put out warnings around shutting these down. Now, some environmentalists have come together and said, okay, we don't want to have these transmission lines. Look, you can't not create power, transmit power, and expect your lights to stay on. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, listen. We get that, and everyone loves all of their devices, and they want to charge them all, and the state of Maryland's making everybody switch to electric cars, and yet they don't have any solutions for the power grid. We recognize it's needed. We just think that the path of this 70-mile line, it needs to go straight through Prince George's County, right down the middle of it, into Tacoma Park, right through Bethesda and Chevy Chase, and where all the liberal Democrats live. See, they never want it in their neighborhoods. It's amazing, but that's a fight for another day. Thanks for informing us on some of the great things. Thank you, Glenn. Always great talking with you. Glenn Davis, Director of Virginia Department of Energy. With that, Glenn Youngkin really has assembled a good team, hasn't he?
Really
I don't think I've ever talked to anybody from the Youngkin administration that doesn't know what they're doing, and they're good at communicating. It's 7:16. Let's get straight to it.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live.
From the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Millions and millions and millions and millions of people have come from foreign countries and crossed our borders illegally and further illegally claimed asylum status so that they could stay in this country indefinitely. In some cases, they're going to get their asylum hearing years and years and years from now. And in the meantime, they stay here. They've been taken care of with housing and schooling and food services and, things that American citizens don't get. Julie Gunlock, it seems wrong. It seems unfair. It seems like a house of cards that's about to collapse financially as well as with regard to the criminal element that is brought forward. We know that people are coming into this country unvetted. Even Bill Clinton has admitted that murderers have come here unvetted because of the policies over the last 3.5 years. So something needs to be done well beyond just securing the border. The people who have come here illegally by law should be deported. And Donald Trump has promised that there will be deportations. And by the way, based on the latest polling, the majority of Americans support what is being termed as mass deportations, to make it sound really scary, of illegal immigrants. So given all of that, it is amazing to see the lines being drawn right now on what I'm told is a very controversial position. Whenever anyone says that the deportation of illegal immigrants who have entered this country illegally, breaking our laws and continuing to break our laws in the last couple of years, anyone who says that it's controversial to deport those illegal immigrants, they're telling you that following the law is controversial.
Right, exactly. Yes.
How many, I keep hearing that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy and the threat to our constitutional government. A law was passed, a law was signed by the president. In fact, in this case, it was many cases it was Reagan, and then in other cases it was Clinton who signed these laws about immigration. The bill was debated in Congress. It was passed in the House, passed in the Senate. It was given to the president. He signed it into law. And now, not enforcing the law at the border in terms of securing the border in the first place, and then allowing people to stay without deportation, the same people who are violating those laws that were constitutionally passed are the same ones who are saying that Donald Trump, by coming in and following the law and enforcing the law, is a threat to our country and our democracy.
Yes, I know. And every single country around the world has border laws. I'm going overseas in a couple of weeks. I can't stay there. I'm going to go and spend a week.
Right.
And I can't stay there. I'm not allowed to stay there. Every country in the world has border requirements, frankly, that are a lot more strident than the United States. Yeah. And these liberals suggest we should just open the borders. There shouldn't be any borders.
To be fair, it goes well beyond liberals.
Libertarians.
Sadly,
yes, I know.
There
Libertarians,
were many Republicans who have been able. In fact, let me give you this one because I think that this multimillionaire speaks for a lot of business owners in this country who gain wealth by exploiting illegal labor, cheap labor coming in from our southern border. This is Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban appeared on CNBC yesterday, and he sort of gave away the story here, raising the specter of deportation and companies having to, actually prove that they're not violating law by hiring illegal immigrants. Take a listen to this very revealing diatribe.
Donald Trump has got Stephen Miller, who said he wants mass deportations. I sat in front of restaurant owners and I asked them, what would it be like if all of a sudden you got a knock on your door and there was somebody from Stephen Miller's squad asking you for the names and addresses and immigration status of everybody that works for you? That's not how you can run a country. And
actually,
so Kamala
Mr.
Harris
Cuban, if I may, that is literally exactly how you run a country. When he says Stephen Miller's squad, what he's referring to is federal law enforcement officers from the Department of Homeland Security. And maybe Mr. Cuban, who has employed several thousands of people in his lifetime working in the corporate world,
Yes.
perhaps his HR department should have looking into, because there's a thing called the I-9 form that for 30 years has been the law. If you draw a paycheck in this country, you cannot take that paycheck unless you have filled out an I-9 form that shows your proof of citizenship or your green card as a legal resident of this country. If you don't have that documentation, you shouldn't be working there. And here's Mark Cuban saying, this is no way to run places, to have law enforcement come in and make sure you're not breaking the law. What is this all
That's
about?
exactly how you should run things.
That's how you're supposed to run things. And
essentially, he's perfectly fine with exploiting these people.
Of course
with
he is.
businesses underpaying them. They're not legally on the books. They're getting paid
That's right.
under the table. He's perfectly
exploiting
fine
the
with that.
people
Helps
who are
his
coming
bottom
here
line.
illegally.
Yep.
Exploiting them, and by the way, undermining people who are here that would love
That's
to do
right.
those jobs, but they actually,
And
demand to get a living
frankly,
wage.
undermining businesses that go by the law, that respect
That's right.
the law and hire people properly.
Meanwhile, while all of this is going on, take a look in Mexico right now. There is a caravan of several thousand illegal immigrants right now heading to the U.S. border with Mexico.
I wonder why,
just
Larry.
ahead of the election. I think they're trying to get in while they can. And by the way, as some reporters have gone down to take a look at the makeup of this caravan, some are from Venezuela, many from Haiti, Honduras, and parts of Africa.
Parts of Africa. Great.
According to a write-up in the Daily Wire. Speaker Johnson, by the way, says that they're already putting together a plan to work with the incoming Trump administration should he win the election, saying that right now they're ready for 4.5 million illegal immigrants to be the first priority for mass deportation.
Good.
This can be done. It will be done. And by the way, as soon as you cut off benefits, as soon as you say, no, you're not going to get all of these benefits that you've been getting from the
Free
federal
hotels,
government.
free phones.
You cut off the benefits and you start deporting the first round, and suddenly you're going to see not only will the migration stop, but people will go back to their home countries. They will leave. It's what a really crazy, radical, right-wing, racist, xenophobic Republican candidate for president once called self-deportation. And that radical was named Mitt Romney. It's 7:24.
Now,
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It is 7:37. It's O'Connor and Company. Good morning. Thanks for joining us here on this fine October morning. We are charging straight ahead through this presidential election season and, of course, for all the major local elections, Virginia 7, Virginia 10, Senator in Virginia, Senator in Maryland, Maryland 6. So we're covering it all the way you expect us to. Coming up at 8:05, Tim Murtaugh, senior advisor for the Trump campaign, will join us, talk about McDonald's Gate. I don't know if you've heard this scandal. Apparently, Donald Trump didn't actually take a job at McDonald's. That was...
I think...
I know.
I think this is a serious scandal, Larry.
Could be a career ender. 8:35. Finally, have you gone? You have gone too far. Have you no dignity left, sir? 8:35. Tom Bevan, Real Clear Politics, on the latest polls. A couple revealing moments here. We talked about this Liz Cheney, Kamala Harris thing, their country over party that they were throwing. And she said a couple of very revealing things. First, let's start with this one. Listen to this. She catches herself as she's saying it, but she actually insults Trump voters. Here, take a listen.
The notion over the last several years coming from Trump and those who follow him, meaning people like who he's running with, not his voters, but just others.
You catch that?
God.
Trump and the people who follow him. And they just, the people who run with him. What does that even mean, the people who are running with him? Not his voters, of course.
His entourage.
She needs to, I would love it if actually an interviewer would ever address her with this. Like you and Joe Biden and Democrats and Barack Obama, you constantly talk about Donald Trump in the most, heinous of political rhetoric in the political terms. How is a person who is voting for Donald Trump not supposed to take that as a direct assault on them, their judgment, their
Right.
intelligence, their morality,
Right.
their ethics. You and Liz
They
Cheney are
can't
sitting
help
here talking
themselves.
about how he's a fascist and how he's going to end our country. If someone out there, if a Pennsylvanian or a Michigander is going to vote for him, how are they not to take this as a direct insult to them?
Right.
I'd love to hear her try to answer that.
I mean, they use the most horrific language for Trump. They say he's a Nazi. They say he's ending democracy. They say he's a tyrant. They say,
Right.
I mean, an authoritarian. You name it, they say it, and they're ignoring that there are several million people who support him.
Tens of millions. Yes.
And yes, the Democrat Party has not moved on from deplorables. They've tried to soften the language, but it's the same sentiment.
There's one other moment that happened here. It's Royal Oak, Michigan, Oakland, Michigan, the county adjacent to Wayne County, which is the major Detroit county in southeastern Michigan. And I want you to listen to this. It's about 2 minutes long, but it's well worth it for a couple of reasons. First, again, this is the Joy campaign, right? This is Kamala Brat Summer. This is, all the... Listen to how sad and angry and depressed she sounds, first of all. And she's talking about, really, honestly, this is the message 2 weeks before the election. She's talking about how her voters and her supporters must not despair. I mean, when that's your message, don't despair. When your message should be, we're going to win this thing. Let's go. Follow me. We're heading to the finish line. This is the final stretch. It's the final countdown, right? It's like, wow, I'm really motivated. Instead, it's don't despair. Number one. Number two, she then ventures into word salad, which we always adore when Kamala Harris does this because she's trying so hard to sound smart.
Yes.
And there's one other moment where she tries to quote Ben Franklin, where, Ben Franklin famously after the Constitutional Convention, and whether it's true or not or apocryphal, but was asked, what have we got? And he said, is it a republic or a monarchy, I think is what was the question. And he said, a republic if you can keep it. But they're so bought into this idea that we are a democracy that she actually says, she refers to our country as a democracy, and then she says, if we can keep it. It's like, what the hell are you talking about?
Right.
It is a direct bastardization of a famous American line, which was a Republican. All right, so given all of that setup, I want you to listen to this glorious, depressing, despairing word salad from Kamala Harris as she makes the final case to voters.
If I can just speak to what people are feeling. We cannot despair. We cannot despair. The nature of a democracy is such that I think there's a duality. On the one hand,
a duality.
Oh,
there's an incredible strength when our democracy is intact. An incredible strength in what it does to protect the freedoms and rights of its people. Oh, there's great strength in that.
Real fast, what is Liz Cheney's inner monologue?
No, that's what I was going to say, is you should watch this because her face, she can't look at Kamala. She keeps looking at the crowd. She kind of looks down, and the look on her face is just pure horror. Like, what have I done with my life?
What have I done? How did I get here?
How
When
do
you
I
go
get
back
out of this?
over your life choices. Like,
oh, yeah, yeah.
Maybe you're at a party where everybody's drunk and people are making bad decisions. It's like, oh my God, how did I get here? What did I do to end up in this kitchen at this party?
Well, I mean, there's no way to back out of this. There's no way to back out of this for Liz Cheney.
All right, so here goes Kamala. She continues. But again, the first message, let me just speak to what people are feeling right now. We mustn't despair. That's the message 2 weeks before Election Day.
And it is very fragile. It is only as strong as our willingness to fight for it. And so that's the moment we're in. And I say do not despair because in a democracy, as long as we can keep it, in our democracy, the people, every individual has the power to make a decision about what this will be. And so let's not feel powerless. Let's not let and I get it, overwhelming nature of this all make us feel powerless because then we have been defeated. And that's not our character as the American people. We are not one to be defeated. We rise to a moment And we stand on broad shoulders of people who have fought this fight before for our country.
Oh, the bromides.
And in many ways, let us look at the challenge then that we are being presented and not be overwhelmed by it. The baton is now in our hands.
Oh, another cliche.
Baton.
To fight for, not against, but for this country we love. That's what we have the power to do. So let's own that. Dare I say, be joyful in what we will do in the process of owning that, which is knowing that we can and will build community and coalitions and remind people that we're all in this together.
Joyful is not the word that comes to mind as I hear this lamentation.
I mean,
from Kamala
honestly,
Harris.
you know her inner monologue right now while she's saying this is like, this is like an ask not what your country can do for you moment. You know
yes.
they're going to quote. She really like tears down
This is going to be
wall.
carved into the monument
Yes,
that they're
exactly.
going to erect
She's
to
like,
me.
I'm doing so good. This is an iconic moment. This will be repeated. This will go viral. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, it went viral, all right. This is, again, the closing argument that Kamala Harris is making to these Michigan voters begins with...
If I can just speak to what people are feeling. We cannot despair.
Okay, well, that's inspiring to say the least. It's 7:45 WMAL. Traffic. I am trying hard not to feel confident, honestly.
I
mean,
know. I'm trying really hard. I know.
But, man, when that's all they got,
I know.
and we got French fries.
Later this morning on the Chris Plant Show, we are now officially 2 weeks away from not knowing who won the presidential election. 9 a.m. on WMAL.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez campaigning for Kamala Harris, I suppose, and she really didn't like that McDonald's event. The outrage over Trump at McDonald's is a remarkable thing to witness and really a Rorschach test into how you view American politics, whether you thought it was amazing and laughed at it or you thought it was absolutely outrageous and horrible. Here's AOC in Pennsylvania yesterday, cut 17.
We see Elon Musk coming in here. I mean, we got to talk about what this guy's doing, right? He's not only just dumping millions and millions of dollars here in the state of Pennsylvania, acting like he's from here, acting like he knows what Pennsylvania is about. It's not just what he's doing. He's doing these little, these little contests where he's promising people $1 million, in some kind of lottery giveaway if they sign up for his list. And I want us to put together what those two things are like. When you have a billionaire just dangling $1 million to those of us and many of us who are struggling to make ends meet.
Wait, what? She's struggling to make ends meet?
Yeah.
Those of
Living
us.
in her...
You've got Donald Trump putting on...
Michael, thank you.
Her luxury
ridiculous.
apartment in her Tesla. Yeah,
Exactly.
Sure. She's really struggling.
And how dare he offer $1 million to people who need it?
Yeah,
Right.
Exactly.
Okay, but then let's jump ahead to cut 17A as her outrage really explodes over Trump making French fries.
They're not trying to empathize with us. They are making fun of us. They are making fun of us. Donald Trump thinks that people who work at McDonald's are a joke.
No, he actually doesn't. And
no one who watched that thinks that. No one who watched that thinks that Trump thinks they're a joke. He appreciates them.
But by the way, drawing that out, that's divisive. That's trying to pit people, trying to turn people in hatred against another. They're making fun of. But let me just be clear, and I don't want anyone to take this the wrong way. No one is making fun of people who work at McDonald's. But when she says they're making fun of us, that is true. We are making fun of her.
Yes. 100%.
We are making fun of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez every possible opportunity, just not for why she thinks. And she called that a staged event, by the way. Remember when she went down to the border dressed all in white with her red lipstick and pretended to cry in front of a parking lot? It was literally a staged
Remember when she got
opportunity?
arrested on Capitol grounds in relation to Dobbs, and she held her arms behind her back, but there were no cuffs.
Right, she was pretending like she was handcuffs.
Yes.
That's
she knows a lot about staging things.
But at least Trump had actual.
Her boyfriend, that gigantic redhead. I mean, talk about staging. I mean,
hey, what are you
really
saying? What are you implying?
I'm just being mean.
What's his name
Larry.
again?
I don't know.
Boyfriend? Is it Lance? Bruce? Ginger?
Don.